Is this the end of Don Lemon? After being fired from CNN, he's being kicked around in the world of online media with basically no success, but I think even Bill Maher realized how far gone Don Lemon is when he gave the most insane take on Donald Trump's base that I've ever seen. Watch this for yourself before we get into it.
Let me ask you your opinion on this. Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary show. They did one thing, they did a sketch where Tom Hanks puts on a Maga hat, so he's a Trumper. And then Keenan comes over to shake his hand, and he won't shake his hand.
Yeah.
And I said this on Fareed's show the other day. I found that's so old. You know, I didn't vote for him. I get all the bad things about that administration, but if you think they don't shake black people's hands, it's just you're wrong. That's not who they are. Matt Gaetz shakes black people's hands. You know, Kid Rock will shake your hand. It's just not helpful to like think that half the country that's where they are. That's your
still. You're a comedian. You know, it's part of its comedy.
I understand.
But let's be honest. There's a huge faction of the MAGA movement that's really racist.
I wouldn't say huge. No. I'd say partly.
I would say huge.
Yeah, okay. Well, we have different perspectives.
I would say huge. And even if they're not, you have to overlook a lot of that in order to support Donald Trump, which I think is maybe even more egregious than just saying I'm a racist.
That's a fine rationalization because now there's literally no way you can convince Don Lemon that you're not a racist. That's how this circular logic works, and frankly, with how race-obsessed the left has gotten over the last decade, it may be time to update the meaning of the racism to include the far left's fixation or race-based DEI, the bigotry of low expectations against minorities, and the explicit way in which it campaigns on race in elections before slamming their own base as racist for not voting their way like we saw in this election. And it's all of those latter aspects of the race-tinted worldview that you see from Don Lemon without him even realizing it. By the way, we're pulling the curtain back on a lot of these lies, so please be sure to subscribe to Millionaire Mentor to never miss out. Now, I wasn't even prepared for how far Don was going to take this line of thinking until I saw what he said here next.
You know, to ascribe to all the people who voted for him, which is a majority of the country.
I didn't say all the people.
Yeah, I understand.
It's not a majority, it's plurality.
Well, whatever it is, he won.
Yeah.
It's at least half the country. I mean, to ascribe his worst traits to all of them.
I don't think it's half the country, but go on.
Well,
so ascribe his worst traits to whatever.
How do you win an election?
Well,
and the popular
first it's
vote.
the electorate. Not everybody votes, and I don't think I think most of the people in America don't vote, and I don't think it's half the country. So what I'm saying is, I don't think half the country is racist, and I don't think all of MAGA is racist. But I do think that there's a huge element in the MAGA party that is racist, whether they are conscious of it or not. Some of them are not. And if they are not, they have had to overlook a lot of racism and a lot of bigotry. And if you do that and you say, I'm okay with this, I think that makes you worse than someone who just says, hey, I'm a racist, and they tell you.
Wait, what? Did he really imply the election results don't correspond to the ideological divide in the country simply because voter turnout isn't 100%? So does he hold that standard across the board, or just when speaking about Republicans? Elections are like a survey with the biggest sample size possible into the hundreds of millions. Nobody's buying this demographic gerrymandering from both sides. First, that we're not speaking about a majority when we're talking about Trump's base, especially now that he's won the popular vote, and then also saying that a huge fraction of that base is outright racist. That's the way people think when they've already decided what they want to believe, which is probably true in the case of Don Lemon.
Some of it is just a backlash to what they think was going too far, like all these corporations now that have dropped DEI. Now, in the government, they did it because he ordered...
Backlash for what?
For too much DEI.
I don't think those people understand what DEI is. DEI is not the hiring of black people who are not qualified or
it can
people
be.
Who are... No. That's not what it's about.
It can have that result.
But anything can be. Yes, of course it could have that result, but there's no evidence that it does have that result. And
I don't know about that.
Okay, so then what is your evidence? There's no evidence that there is that result. If you can show me the evidence, then okay, then I will agree with you.
Well, I'm not going to name any names.
Okay, but diversity, equity, inclusion, first of all, is not, maybe they're talking about affirmative action, which is a whole different thing, which is about making sure you hired, a certain number of people that are this, that, and that. But diversity, equity, and inclusion is about making sure that the pool of candidates is larger. So if you are fishing, rather than fishing in a swimming pool, maybe you're in a pond. Rather than fishing in a pond, you're in a lake, or maybe in a lake instead of a river, or in a river you're in the ocean. So you're just trying to find different people, and you're trying to increase the number of options of qualified people that you can hire. It's not about hiring people who are not qualified and who are just black. The biggest recipient of DEI is white women, and also veterans, because of veterans, and also people who are disabled people. It's just about making sure that disabled people have a ramp somewhere at work so that they get to work and they can
but
whatever.
equity is the word, not equality. That it was a change that people noticed. Equality was everybody gets an equal shot. Equity is like, no, it's basically quotas.
Exactly. You know, the left has gone too far when they've even lost Bill Maher like this. And honestly, this is the first time that I've even heard this sanitized definition of what DEI means. It's not about broadening the pool, which is obviously needed for a meritocracy. It's about shrinking the pool of talent so that it's in line with certain identity traits and representation that an organization wants to see, and then perhaps only picking the best and most qualified people from that small pool. That's what the goal of DEI initiatives even is. When someone like United Airlines says they want half their pilots to either be women or people of color, they're starting out with the race or gender of the pilot they want and picking candidates from that much smaller pool relative to the total population. I literally have no idea why Don keeps embarrassing himself with this absurd new definition of DEI when even his own leftist colleagues would disagree with it.
In the definition that the Maga Trump administration that they're saying what DEI is, that is a racist definition of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
What is it? What is it?
They're saying that this is because they're hiring people, women, people of color, minorities who are not qualified. And that's not what is happening.
So you're saying no person of color or woman who was not qualified was ever hired for any job?
I'm sorry. Well, no. I'm not saying that.
Oh, but
But
it seems like that would have to be the logical conclusion.
But that would be saying that no white people were ever unqualified.
And we know lots of them have.
Yeah. And so when most of the people who are, they talk about the airplanes in the airplane industry, most of the pilots and the people who are white. Most of the doctors in the country where they say DEI, we don't want it. Most of the doctors are white. And so all of those malpractice suits are against mostly white doctors. Most of the planes that fall out of the sky are
of course
piloted by white pilots.
Yes.
And so then what is your issue then with diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I don't have one. The question.
No, I'm not saying you. I'm talking about the
okay.
understood you. What is your issue then if there is no evidence that by hiring a bigger pool of people?
Nope, that's wrong as well. It's incredible how Don Lemon got the definition wrong on both ends of this debate, leaving even Bill Maher scratching his head. It's truly incredible that no matter what discussion you have with someone so far gone to the left, identity politics always gets factored in. And perhaps it was too much even for CNN when he got fired, but let me know in the comments what you thought about this exchange, because this is just a snapshot for why Don Lemon's career has fallen off a cliff in the last few years.